Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition. Hello, Gary. Hello, Jean. Hello, LaLa. How are you doing?
I'm
Hello,
good.
Alexander.
I love you.
Hello, Lost Frequency Podcast. And Ashley, welcome back. Nice to see you, Ashley. Another round. So how's everybody doing this evening? So what do we got in tail tonight?
We have shadow people, which I have experienced twice in my life. So I'm very interested.
Hey, Lon. Welcome, Lon. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm glad everybody is alive and doing well. So, yes, Liana and Cynthia Newsom, welcome back. Don't forget, Cynthia, put your beacon out. Shine. Let that light shine. But, yes, I will not forget you. So, we got a lot of people tonight, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And pictures. So, this is going to be good.
Oh, oui. I see. I speak French. Yes. You all start bringing them in. Welcome, Kathy, Michael, Christopher, Rye, and author Philip. Nice to have everybody. Let's blow them up a little bit. There we go.
Scoot over. Okay.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Doing great.
All right, let's go around and introduce yourselves and promote anything, your books or anything you're doing. Ladies first, and we'll go around. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, LaLa and Chris. Kathy Cogliano. I'm here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I am a writer for Phenomena Magazine. I also write for Outer Limits Magazine, both UK digital-based magazines. I'm a lifelong experiencer. So starting as a kid, as early as 6, had my first paranormal experience. And at about 10, I had my first UFO experience. I'm a contactee. So yeah, I kind of run the gambit of all of the whole wheelhouse here. So it's nice to meet everybody. It's an honor to be here with you all.
Oh,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Yes.
Ready?
And action.
Go ahead. Oh, whoever wants to go can go.
I'm like, who's next?
I thought we were going to go in order. Yeah, I thought we were going to go like in a clockwise kind of order or something like that from top to bottom.
Oh, so I guess that makes me next. All right. So I am Michael Kopf out of Texas. I'm a paranormal investigator and vodcaster. Now, I'm the host of The Energy That Surrounds Us, and I am the host of Tetsu, Riding Through the Unknown, and also the host of Paranormal Verses. And the joy of those shows is The Energy That Surrounds Us actually will be airing right after this one, so I unfortunately will be checking out a little early because I got to do setup for it. My show's at 9 o'clock Central Time.
Cool.
Riding Through the Unknown is disclosure and esoterics. So I get the joy of doing that on Wednesdays, 3 times a month now. And Paranormal Versus is the UK versus US in the paranormal field, which LaLa was on.
Yep.
And Kathy was on. And that is a lot of fun, and so that keeps me busy.
Yeah.
And I grew up with shadow people, and my first paranormal experience at 2. I've seen apparitions. I've heard disembodied voices, so pretty much almost experienced it all.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, Christopher?
Yes, I'm Chris Harmon from Illinois. I'm a paranormal investigator with our group Something Wicked. I'm also a UFO field investigator, abduction counselor, psychic viewer, and healer. And I've seen everything from UFOs to shadow people to just endless.
Wow.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say hi to my friend Rachel who's watching, and thanks to everybody for letting me come on again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Nice to have you again, Christopher. And Rye.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Rye. I'm a co-host. I'm half of the podcast of the Lost Frequency podcast, where we delve into everything paranormal, mysterious, unexplained, cryptids, UFOs, abductions, and everything else kind of that's just strange. I've moved to Mexico, so I'm living here in Mexico, and I always record on my rooftop, and it's fantastic here. And I've had a ton of experiences with the paranormal. Personally, I've had a couple UFO experiences as well, and some other things that are just kind of unexplained. So I'm going to bring that to the table here.
Thank you.
Awesome. And author Philip.
Hi. So I'm the host of Horsefly Chronicles Radio. I'm also the owner of the infamous haunted Horsefly Chronicles home in Eastern Pennsylvania. And ghosts are real.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So what's interesting, right out of the gate, ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia Newton says, my question is, how do you know if it's a ghost or shadow people? What is the difference? That's a good question. What's your all's take on that?
I mean, I personally, they're always, it's strictly just a shadow. It's black. It's the outline of a human, and they either slide across the wall or they kind of slide over top. That's what I've experienced. They slide around. Um, Ghosts are, they have more light to them or more personality feeling to them. These I've never really had too much feeling with these. Maybe a little fear, but that's just my experience.
Yeah, I would have to second that on the fear part. Definitely, you know, I'm not saying that ghost entities aren't going to give you that fear as well, but shadow people or shadow beings, because I don't like to call them people because they're usually not originally a person, are full of fear, and that's what they want from you.
I can personally answer that. A shadow person is going to have more of a, in some cases, more of a negative feeling. You're going to feel more like a coldness or maybe like a sense of anger, whereas a spirit or a ghost is going to have more of a calmness, and you're going to see more of like LaLa was saying, more of a light, more of a brightness, and more of a calming in some cases.
For me, I've noticed that shadow people like to always be out of the corner of the eye. And when you look at them, they tend to quickly disappear.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to be seen. Where ghosts and spirits, they want to be seen. So they're going to hang around and interact. Shadow people, not so much.
Yep. That's true.
Kathy?
You know, it's funny. My experience with the shadow people, unusual in that it was a multi-group of Native American shadow people. And then I also communicate with spirit. And for me, the shadow people of obviously more of a flat presence. Of course, they can be malevolent. My experience was that they were very benevolent. They were there protecting the farm and the house. And the owners had seen the shadow people as well and never had a sense of fear in seeing these shadow people. And with spirit, I see it more as they're 3D. So I can usually see them 3D. And then there is more of a presence to them. They have more of a personality will come through that you can usually pick up on. Unlike the shadow people. But yeah, my experience was unique in that it was the whole group. It was pretty cool.
Author Philip.
I think everyone here so far is right, because I see these things once in a while, and everyone on this platform I agree with. It's really hard to decipher sometimes between a ghost and these shadow people, but I do know this verbatim. After having 52 paranormal teams from around the world come to my home, what we have learned is that these shadow people are intelligent beings, very intelligent. They will blow your mind with some of the things I have seen them do. And it seems that if there's enough energy in the room and intent, these things come through in a way where not only do your electronics get manipulated, but you do as well.
Now, I was always told that shadow people have never been human. Is that what you all think?
Yep, I totally agree. And the ones that are human perhaps try to manipulate and make themselves look like shadow persons to get that fear out of people and get that. But I don't believe that they're human at all. The real ones, they are some sort of entity that has never manifested into physical form. Like as in like a being of sorts. That's why they say it's the shadow realm or the shadow beings.
Yeah. The first time I saw one was actually my parents had a house built on a battleground land. It was Indian land actually. And I was in the basement where my room was because I was a cool teenager, And all of a sudden I saw the brightest little light on the wall, and it got really long up and down, and a shadow person slid out of it, and his face was sideways, but his body was frontways. and he slid into the darker room. And I was just frozen. I couldn't move. But I noticed it didn't like any male friends that I would bring over. No matter if I liked the person or not, like romantically, it didn't like any of the male friends. It was really strange. I moved out eventually. Yeah. But it was weird.
Was it romantically?
I mean, I don't know.
The way you toss that in, I had to ask.
I don't
And
remember.
the blushy cheeks that are coming from that.
I know, right? Romantically.
I'm innocent. Okay.
So, I mean, some entities do not like the opposite sex. I'm sorry. So,
That's
but
true.
Crystal's right. You know, some children are traumatized by these entities, and they do block out these things. As they get older, they don't remember, or they start to relapse, and they start to remember tidbits of these problems or whatever they, had of these I can't even talk. You got me laughing inside. But anyways, you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, the
There we
first shadow figure I ever saw, I was, just, of course, a lot younger, and don't remember exactly what age, but I was in the basement, and I was playing an arcade machine, and this shadow person, dark black, tall, just walked right through the wall, just right through the wall in the corner of my eye. And I wasn't scared. I was more fascinated, if anything.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Nah, I would. Where'd my holy water go? See, now you got me nervous. All right, I got it. I usually have it right here in front of me, Christopher.
So what's interesting too
Love
about
it.
shadow people is I was at a haunted bridge near my house, like 45 minutes up the road,
Mm.
and people would fire a gun into the air to spook and try and get the spirits, attention and to communicate. Well, I'm talking with two teammates at the time, and somebody fired a gun into the air, which I do not recommend. I'm just putting that out there because you never know where that bullet's going to land.
Mm-hmm.
But a shadow actually ran right through me away from that gun shot.
Wow.
We were like, and my teammates looked at me and they're like, "Did you?" And we were like, "Yeah, a spirit, black mass just ran right through us, trying to get away from it."
It's
That's
crazy.
crazy. That is crazy. Now, I have silver bullets with holy water, so I'm prepared. So I don't know what the hell y'all was shooting that night, but it must have did something.
Yeah, but wait a minute, don't silver bullets only work on werewolves?
Hey, I'm
Yeah.
just in case.
Just in
they are
case.
blessed. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Cover all your bases. Cover all your
Hey,
bases.
I have seen stuff in that woods that you will not believe exists. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. So, and I got pictures to prove it. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Philip, you have experienced a lot of shadow beings in your home. Can you say some things that you've witnessed or your family has witnessed?
Sure. In fact, I'm in the room right now where the first paranormal team in 2013 caught the shadow person. So I'm in that actual room.
Oh, wow.
I could say this, what I know, everybody may have a different opinion on this, but from my knowledge of what I have learned is that holy water, crosses, crucifixes, religion does not affect these things in this particular home. Where, if it's something that's like a negative entity that they're trying to remove, there's some kind of retaliation. But the shadow people, boy, religious artifacts do not do anything to these. They don't change anything. They don't change the dynamics of what these things are trying to do. And what I did observe and learn is that they're watching us like we're trying to observe them. And it usually comes out around 2 hours into an investigation where everyone's hyped and they're trying to get something. And all of a sudden, you start to see one, then two, then three. And you think it's your eyes or the bulbs flickering or an optical illusion or a matrix in with the eyes. But then on the equipment comes these responses that they're picking up. you're watching me. We know everything about you. And it can be chilling. We had a seasoned paranormal investigator here years ago, David Spinks, and I'll never forget this. The shadow person comes through and texts him on his phone when he's sitting in my basement and says, tell the other person to get off their phone now. And meanwhile, the other person in the house was on the phone and the shadow person knew it. They weren't in the basement.
Oh, every one of y'all would have been wet from my holy water. Yeah.
Would have been showering that.
Yeah. Religion, in this particular case, I know that we all look to religion. And again, I don't disrespect religion. Religion does work in some cases. From my knowledge, again, this is just my knowledge of my case, what we're dealing with here, it doesn't even make a difference. I believe that these things are cross-dimensional beings. Somehow they're observing us like we observe them, and they come out with our highest of interest of intent, where they try to, you'll see them at the corner of the eye, and then all of a sudden the electronics in the house go haywire. And then some of us can be manipulated by them because we don't know what they are. We can only give words, and we see them as shadows. But what if there was some kind of a magnetic optical lens that we can see what they really are?
Right.
It's kind of like that movie 13 Ghost, where unless they wore those specific eyeglasses, they didn't see what these things really were. And it brings me back to like, what are they really? What are we actually talking to? But I do know that they're a higher intelligence and they're way ahead of us.
Well, allegedly, the U.S. government, before green IR, night vision goggles, was red. And they had to discontinue using the red night vision goggles because the military, the infantrymen, were allegedly seeing demons. And they were freaking out because they were ultimately seeing into another dimension that was not visible to the human naked eye. So they had to discontinue that and take it off the market. Did you all know about that?
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yes, they were actually saying that they were seeing demons, ghosts, and they were freaking out. So they literally had to take them off the market. And a lot of people don't know about this.
I had no idea.
Yes.
That's scary. Oh my God.
I actually had a Sony camcorder way back when that had night vision. And of course, they don't even use that particular feature. It had infrared and all that on it, and they don't use that no more. You could see a lot of stuff. You go out at night, turn that on, walk around the forest, you see all kinds of stuff.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't heard that, but talking about the military and what they've seen, and when you would see the pictures of them in Iraq and how they had their guns always pointed up, I was told that's because they were aiming for the head of the giants over there. It wasn't that they were just relaxed and, walking around. I was like, no, they had their guns up in case a giant came up, they could drop it.
Well, in 2002, they did encounter the giant in Afghanistan because they did have to sign NDAs, disclosures, right? Which some of the soldiers commit suicide because they could not live with the reality what they encountered. And I think there were 37 that were killed before they took the giant out. So the story's out there. Of course, the ones that came out, the government discredited them and said they were Looney Tunes and everything else and tried to destroy their military career and said they weren't over there. But you know how that works.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's an interesting story.
That's
heard about that one too.
The thing to see on the other side too, there's those glasses that are illegal in I think I'm trying to remember that it's diacyanin lenses, and that is very similar to along the line of that infrared that you were talking about, where you can see see through the veil more or less is what it is, and those are illegal in the U.S. and Canada.
Wow.
Interesting.
I want a pair now.
Wow.
Me too.
Interesting.
Now, have any of you, I know you can speak to beings and You get visited. Have you ever gotten messages? Any of you gotten messages from these shadow people at all? Or dreams with messages?
Oh, don't get me started with dreams. That's a whole. We could have a whole episode and a whole series on that with me. But I haven't. I never got a message from one. But the one experience I had was pretty intense, actually, for like a 18-year-old young man, I guess you could say.
What happened?
Okay, so I'll start this start the ball rolling here. So I was, and of course I'm not writing down at that age. I was never writing down these experiences that I had. So I was around the age of 18 years old. I had come home. I was out with some friends, and I have to make sure I always say this. I wasn't drinking or partying or anything like that. I had come home, and I remember standing outside and seeing the Northern Lights. They were just amazing that night. Not that it ties in with the story, but it was just, I remember that specifically. I had to be up early in the morning for work. So I went to bed, and it was late, and I do the thing that, most young adults or teenagers do. You're watching the clock and you're thinking, well, if I fall asleep right now, I'm going to have, 7 hours and 43 minutes of sleep. And of course, if you're doing that, you're not falling asleep because you're just more concerned about how much time you're going to have to sleep, but you're not actually falling asleep. So I was tossing and turning, and I want to make this note as well. I was awake. A lot of people were like, oh no, that was sleep paralysis. No. I was awake, tossing and turning, watching the clock. Then finally, I just was just like, I rolled onto my back, and I'm like, I can't sleep. And I look up, and floating above me, about 3 feet above me, I could see a head, the shoulders, and the torso of this. Sorry, it just kind of froze up on me there. Is everyone still there?
Yeah, we're
we
here.
can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. It just, my camera's frozen. So I could see all this, and then sorry, I'm off on this one now. So yeah, so I could see the head, the shoulders, and the torso. I could see where the arms were kind of coming down. When it got around the waist area, it went into like a smoky, like a whitish smoky, but everything else on this. I'm gonna have to switch cameras. Sorry, is my camera messing up on me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
1 second, switching right now.
Yeah, when I saw the shadow person, I saw from the head to the belly button and nothing below it. So
Yeah, that was exactly for me as well. I'm just gonna switch this here. So yes, so that is exactly what I had as well. Was just the head and that. The shoulders and around the waist, it just went into nothing. Now it was blacker than black, and it just like sucked the light into it. Now that's all fine and dandy. This was a shadow person. Now it goes on to the next thing that, I'm sitting there staring at almost face to face. I couldn't see any noticeable features except for the eyes. Now the eyes were glowing red, not like shooting out light, but they were glowing red, and it wasn't the whole eye. It was more of like the pupil cornea kind of area of this. And I laid there and in fear, and people are like, and this is where people are like, oh, this was like a sleep paralysis because you couldn't move. No, I couldn't move because I was terrified. It's like the fight, flight, or freeze. Well, I was in freeze. I laid there for, I'm going to assume, about 5 to 10 seconds. Gone. Now, at that point, I did not move anymore because, of course, I'm terrified. I'm not moving. I'm just stuck in this position because I don't want to move because this thing is possibly still out there. And the next thing I remember was waking up in the morning when my alarm going off for work. And that was my shadow being experience.
yes, yeah, same here. I fell asleep right after, which is weird. So.
Yes. Yeah, I find that very weird. It was like, yeah, I don't know how long I laid there for. All I remember was waking up next. And some people are like, well, was your lost time? I'm like, I don't know. I just was literally waking up from my alarm clock. Did I tell anybody after that? No. That was about like 25, 30 years ago. I'm not telling anybody because no one's going to hear this. No one's going to believe me.
Right.
Very
Interesting.
Actually, we have pictures from some of you guys that I'd like everybody to see. They're pretty creepy in an
Sure, let's take
interesting
a look.
way.
Awesome.
All right, let me spool those up, ladies and gentlemen. Here, stand by.
I think some of those are from me, so
Let's
Yeah.
see here.
And Philip too. I think that's it. Sorry.
Let's
My
see.
chair.
They were in the group chat, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, guys, it's been fun, but I have to go prep for my show coming up. Season
Thank
premiere.
you for coming on.
All right.
Bye,
How does everybody
Michael.
get a hold of you, Michael?
You can find me via my email, which is Michael, micheal.koff@gmail.com, or I will send you my brand new website that I have. And you can also find me on YouTube and, yeah, pretty much YouTube and Rumble if you have it.
Yeah, everybody goes to Rumble.
But the website I sent you in the private chat, that has links to everything to find me.
Okay, great. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you
Michael.
very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, kind sir. You have a good night.
Thank
Bye,
you, and Happy New
Michael.
Year, everyone.
Yeah.
See
Happy
ya.
New
Nice
Year.
meeting you, Michael.
All right, I got a picture up. Who's this picture belong to?
Oh, that's me, Philip.
Okay.
So that's the basement of the Horsefly Chronicles home. That was actually in 2013. Something was running down the stairs, and a paranormal team was taking pictures. And so what they got was this whirlwind of darkness in that one spot with three orbs coming out of it.
Wow.
Interesting.
They're bright.
Yeah, those are really bright. You know, they're
Yeah,
not.
they are.
Usually, a dust orb is kind of like this
Yeah.
grayish kind of thing, but those are, and they're not a lens flare because there's no direct light source as well. Which
Correct.
is something, yeah,
All right.
interesting.
And this one.
Oh, that's me, Philip, as well. That's the Horsefly Chronicles home. That was taken by Paranormal Challenge back in 2019 on an SLS, coming down the stairs as well. And it looks like a figure of a person.
I see
And then
that
other
one.
pictures, I'm not sure if I sent you those, turn into a shadow.
I see that one right off.
Oh wow. Huh.
And that's for me as well. These things are interdimensional beings. This was taken upstairs balcony of the Horsefly Chronicles home by a paranormal team, 2015. In one picture that I sent you, it could be a boy or a girl. Another picture, this thing has 4 legs. And another picture in the same exact spot, it's just a shadow of a person.
That looks like that one back there. It looked like a toddler almost.
Yeah,
With
Almost
like a
does.
onesie on
Yeah.
with longer hair, like a 3-year-old or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
It has 4 legs too in other pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Is that an
That
orb?
was taken on home surveillance. That's an orb going through the dining room. And what we have learned, actually, that was the night that Paranormal Challenge was here. That thing is what turned into, so there was a lot of people here throughout the entire home. That thing is what turned into that twisted shadow in the basement, which turned into the separate orbs.
Oh.
Aha. Oh, that's something peeping out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's scary.
that's something
Now
I see
why?
I see that all the
And
time.
this picture,
Why is a mirror always on the
this one
floor?
probably freaks me out. That is one of these beings looking through the mirror. I don't know if you could pull that closer or not, but that still gives me the chills, that one there.
Mm.
Why do people always have mirrors on the floor? I never do understand that.
For them to peep into. the beings.
I don't know.
Yes,
Trips me out.
yes.
Oh wow, I caught that right off.
Oh, wow.
Is that Pennywise?
Oh god.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I am so good.
So
I got
in that picture
that
here,
just flipped me out.
in this picture, that's Vanessa Hoggle, paranormal investigator, and that is the same room, which is the room that I'm in. The room was just changed around. This thing can manifest into anything, and it looks like a head.
Wow.
It looks like an old man.
Yeah, like a vampire old man. That's crazy.
Anybody ever get scratched in there or touched?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what I can tell the world is that these things are real. And that's just an outline of the black mist. There wasn't that good of a picture there of the shadow person actually before it changes form. So here's what we know that we have learned. Again, no, we're not experts, they can change form. They work off of our thoughts. So you don't have to speak. It's what you think, and you can manifest your thoughts into kind of like, let me see you. If you're at the right location at the right time, these things can appear in something you may understand or you may not understand. And then what we also have learned is that some people are affected by these things. And we do know that paranormal equipment as well usually goes dead quickly. That's not my picture. That's the next team.
Yes, this picture is mine. I won't give out location details due to privacy reasons, but that was a shadow that came across the wall, and I was able to take a capture on one of the photos as it was just making its exit.
Wow.
Interesting. I see that.
Nice catch.
That's big.
Oh, I see that
And
one.
there's another photo. This again, same location. I won't say where, but you can almost see the head and the arms and neck of it.
Oh wow.
Mm.
And this is actually a spirit. You can see the eyes and nose, and if you look at the very tail end of it, you almost see like 5 fingers.
Oh my god.
If you can find a better photo of a spirit or anything than that, I'd like to see it because I think that pretty much tops it.
That's amazing.
What happened? Or at the end of that one. That's fine.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, whose is this one?
Oh, that's me. That's the Horsefly Chronicles home. There it is, verbatim. That's the shadow man coming down the stairs. Investigation
That's
team
cool.
caught that one back in 2015.
I like that.
I want to say this. Don't take these things too lightly because they don't play games. And yet religion doesn't affect them. These things, it's kind of like they have feelings in their own way. It's hard to explain, but if you like antagonize these things, they come after you. And then we use, that's another picture, another shot of this thing coming down the stairs. Sometimes I just wonder, what they are. I'm not afraid no more because look, if they wanted me out, I'd be dead a long time ago. I think that some places around the earth, there are interdimensional beings, and we live on a ley line, my home. So it's like the perfect conduit. They're observing us like we're observing them. We're just the ant. And these things are far intelligent, saying, oh, okay, there's you. We've asked that, one of the questions, LaLa, I think you might have asked, have you got any intelligent responses from these things? Yes. And the response on one of these shadow things were where somehow in their own terms, they explain that we're in a parallel. You may not see us, but we see you because we're parallel, they explained it. And that goes to the theory is it a parallel universe where somehow that cross-dimensional of intent can bring them to our world, or we're actually slipping into their world and we don't even realize it.
Wow.
Because you think you're in your own dwelling. But is it possible that that veil opens up into their side and we're trying to observe them in such a way? Don't be afraid. I'll tell everyone to never show fear to anything. I don't care if the devil shows, never show fear, never show
Right.
nervousness. You always show that you are the one that is empowered. You are the one. No matter what your belief is, no matter what you follow, you are the one that is in charge.
Exactly. If you're not careful, you can get sucked in. If you let your guard down, let your fear show, you're gonna be taken in. They're going to give them what they want, more or less, because they feed off of fear. They grow in strength.
Kathy, were you going to say something?
Well, I'd welcome all of your thoughts. My experience was so interesting. So it happened at a farm in Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains, beautiful farm. And it was on, Native American land originally. It had some original Native American paths, on the property. So I was drawn to just go out and check out the pathways and things in the woods. And I had two other guys come with me. And we're well deep into the woods. And then all of a sudden, I could hear these sounds like clicking noises, like whistles and clicking noises. And I thought, and I turned around to the guys and I said, do you guys hear this? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? And then as soon as I asked them that question, there had to have been 8 to 10 of them, Native Americans, males, running through the woods on this pathway that I'm standing on, to the point that I had to step off the pathway, back away, and they came running past me. And I could feel the breeze of them, as they came by. And then I asked them, I'm like, you guys aren't seeing this? They're like, no, we're not seeing any of it. So it was funny that it started out in the woods, the connection with the Native Americans and the land. And so we walked back up into the house. And by the point in time we got in the house, it was dinner hour. So the couple that owned the farm put out this gorgeous big spread. So a whole group of us were standing in their house, open floor, concept. And I'm standing there, and next to me was a gal. Her name was Loretta, and she also can see and communicate to spirit. And as I'm looking straight ahead against a wall that had no windows, and it was, still kind of daylight, so there wasn't a lighting effect that would create shadows per se. Mm-hmm. And as I stood there, I started to see the shadow people appear. And they were very pronounced. There was an entire group of them. There had to have been easily 15 different people. And you could see each individual shape. And they're in a whole group. And you could tell some of them had like blankets wrapped around them just by the way they were holding themselves. And so as I'm standing there watching this unfold, and they're moving, they're moving like a crowd would move, but as shadows. Mm-hmm. And I turned to Loretta and I said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And she looked at me and she said, yeah. So that validated what I was looking at, that I wasn't crazy, and that she was seeing it as well. But we didn't pick up on anything, malicious or evil, or they were just there. It was almost like they were joining the party. And then I, at the end, went over to the owners and I told them what we saw. And they said, oh my God, we have been seeing the shadow people throughout the house. And it really was scaring them. And, both of us concurred to them that, we weren't picking up that this was any type of evil thing. My sense as an intuitive, I felt they were there just to observe and protect the property. Obviously the property is surrounded by all kinds of activity with the Native American spirits. So, but it was interesting to see them as a group. And they were moving. They were walking through the house. It was really cool.
That is amazing. Mm-hmm. And so many of them also.
Yeah, a whole gang of them.
The one at my parents' house, it was, I think, one. I only saw one, but I know since it always tried to make me either depressed or angry or scared. And I remember one time I had a cat named Farley because I had a crush on Chris Farley, whatever. Anyway, and so Farley was super smart cat, but all of a sudden he started playing with something that wasn't there. And then he ran and rammed his head into a metal pole and he passed out. And that he would have never done something like that. Okay. And I remember saying, don't mess with my cat, mess with me. And I made a mistake in doing that because I would get overly depressed. That it wasn't even myself kind of depressed. And weird things would happen. Things would move. It was just crazy. So that was my experience with it. With the first one. The second one wasn't as scary. It just flew over top of me. That's all. But that was like what Philip said, because they do try to invoke certain feelings from you to get a certain energy, I guess. I'm not sure.
Well, they also can feed off your fears as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's true.
And that's one thing a lot of people don't understand. And it says, in it, not going to biblical reference, but let's just bring that up, right? In the Bible, it states 365 times, fear me not, or fear not. There's a reference just for that. And I think Philip said that earlier, don't let the fear, do not fear, right? And a lot of people don't understand, like when I do dowsing or whatnot, I do certain things to cleanse myself and pure white light and say my prayers, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But how good is your faith? Because that's one thing that they will attack. And how strong is it? Because that's one thing evil will attack, and they will try you on that. So, and that's just throwing that out there. And when they find your weakness in that armor, in which they talk about that a lot, they will tick that away or pick at that until they find that weakness, and they will feed on that. And we see that in movies and documentaries and in stories and throughout the Bible and so forth. And in the horror movies, depict that very well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So do you
what's
guys?
your take?
Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I in movies they did. I think there's kind of like a soft disclosure. They tell you this in all movies, even in kids' movies. So, there was one where they're harvesting fear from children, and it's a kids' movie, so it's right there for you. It's there.
That's true.
The one thing I do, because of course I'm a paranormal investigator, and we go into our locations to film and do our shows, and I always walk in with a very strong level of positivity. And a vision like a white light over myself, because negative cannot feed off of positive. Negative cannot feed off of positive. And the more positive you have on you, the less power it's going to have over you, or for that matter, in the environment.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I read the other day in the scientific medical journey that they have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that fear and anger, right, causes cancer. And what's the old saying? Do not go to bed mad or anger with somebody. And they have proven that. And I tell that to people all the time. It's not worth it, right? And people still do it to this day. And it goes to show that how people vibrations, frequencies, right? We know there's up to 13 dimensions, and we can only see in 3. And we talk, and I don't have every level broke down. I don't have my cheat sheet. But we know scientifically there's up to 13. So just like, Philip talked about and Rye, how we can not seeing these other dimensions that parallel us. That is a possibility. So, yes, I do believe in that. I really do.
Yeah, like I believe it's kind of very similar to like a Russian nesting doll, where they're one on top of the other. It's not like we're way out here, way out there. No, it's right on top of one another. And it just, like you said, we just can't see. We can only see in 3 dimensions. How much of the light spectrum can we actually see? And what are we not seeing? When they put on that infrared, they opened up a whole new doorway, and they were able to see things that, we haven't been able to see for quite some time.
Right. That is correct. Absolutely.
Chris, you do remote viewing. Have you ever bumped into one of them while you were doing that?
During remote viewing, I have bumped into a few similar creatures. I can't say for a fact that they were shadow people or not, because once I come in contact with something negative, I immediately stop and cleanse and go back and kind of take that away. Because if I get too adapt to it or figure out more about it, then I'm more or less inviting that in. So I try to keep my distance from it.
Yeah, that's true.
I did do a case once. I will say that you guys were talking about Native American, where there was I won't say the homeowner's name or anything, but she had a Native American in her bedroom that would stare at her at night. Well, he wasn't actually there. It was his energy was so strong, because he was like, you would watch over his land at night. He was so strong, his energy. He was standing there in the corner of the room like this, and at night she could see his energy. She could see the outline of him, and it scared her. But I was able to make contact with him, I was able to figure out who he was through remote viewing, because I did a session.
Well, what happened? Did he go away?
I did a session, and I was able to figure out that his tribe was like called the Watchers, and he was like the chief. He would watch over the land at night. He was standing there like this, and it was just his energy. He wasn't actually there, but the energy from his mark where he stood at night was so strong, and I was able to kind of help that energy kind of disintegrate. And I was able to calm her down, because I was able to tell her that it's just the energy that is not really hurting. And he was actually a good Native American. He was there to protect the land. She had nothing to fear.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So
I'll share.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, sorry, right. Just quick side note. It seems to have this whole Native American theme going on here tonight. I live on sacred Wampanoag land here in Plymouth.
Wow.
And they often come, as I'm out walking the dog, and she sees them as well. And they'll come in the woods and they'll follow me, and I can see them. I've been out there with her. In fact, one of the original Native American trails is right next to my home. So we'll walk down there and usually always have an experience. One of the best ones was a group of women and children walking down to the ocean. I'm not too far from the ocean, carrying big baskets. They were singing. The dog's going crazy because she could see them. And so I have a lot of activity around me here on this land.
Kathy, how tall are they when you see these Indians?
They were average size, the ones, the men that I've seen, they've actually followed me through the woods, going from tree to tree to tree. And what's interesting, their faces were painted up like this, black. And then they were no shirt, just like a, loincloth kind of thing. But seemed to me to be kind of average height. Well, for a man, so taller than me. I'm only 5'3", but not overly tall. But it's, I see them on a regular basis. It's cool.
The reason why I ask, I'm fascinated with giants in the lore tied back to Indians and their ancestry and the giant mounds in the United States and so forth. That's why I asked. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. No, seem to be somewhat average size, I would say. No giants. Not yet, anyway.
Brian Barber says, Philip, how do you feel that religion influences shadow people? Is it a level of vibration or the energy someone emits when they have faith?
Well, yeah, I think I went through that a little bit earlier, is that from my knowledge, religion doesn't have an effect on these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say this. I want to say this. We all look at what we've learned through schools and societies and culturism and religion and what we want to believe in. And it's over 200 religions, if not more, around the world, and everyone has the right religion. But when you live in a haunted house or learn the more about yourself and what we have going on in the physical realm, you learn that a lot of stuff that you were taught, and again, I'm not disrespecting anything, is not what you think it is. You're taught by control of what you should believe, not what the truth is. Because the fact is, if that the government was really open and honest, they would say, well, in CERN, this is what we found when we started that kaleidoscope. Right. They haven't told us anything. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of weather changes and patterns. And now that this Mandela effect is getting even crazier because a lot of us are remembering things that were one way and others are saying, no, it was never that way. And I, for one, will stick by the Fruit of the Loom logo with the cornucopia on it. And some people say it never did exist. Other people would argue that it did exist at one time. There are so many things that are happening within the last 5 years that are unexplainable. Now, in my belief, in my perception of reality, there are different portals, there are different dimensions and times of things that we just can't explain, and it's never taught to us. One, the masters may not even know this. In fact, they don't even know how to make a pyramid today, where they can lie and say, well, thousands of slaves in Egypt made these pyramids. And then you have people say that's virtually impossible because those stones came from thousands of miles away and it couldn't be done. In fact, it couldn't be cut symmetrical and aligned with the stars. So there are so many things that we don't know. But what one of these things, at the age of 14, these shadow people have told me verbatim. Now, before I tell you exactly what was told to me, if you can raise your hand quickly, how many people have had an alien encounter? I'm one.
Mm-hmm.
Alien, UFOs, alien, any kind of abduction or anything. Has
Okay,
anyone
UFOs, yes.
LaLa, I know you did.
Mm-hmm. All of
Okay.
us.
Okay. So we all have something in common here. And the reason I bring that up is because in Staten Island, New York, in the age of 14 years old on a beautiful summer day, and I will never forget this, my friends were all playing in the street, having a good time, beautiful day out. I was stopped in the middle of the street by my brain. Something stopped me. And this is what they told me. This was an intelligent voice, and this was the same intelligent voice that we get through recordings in our home. Philip, are you having a good time in your life? And somehow through my mind, through a form of telepathy, I said yes. Then it says good. Now cars are trying to pass by. My friends are yelling, Philip, get out of the street, and I couldn't move. The being says, good, because when your life journey is complete, this is where you will wind up and start again. And I was released. What I have learned from that is that somehow along the lines of life that we think we are in the physical presence of us, what this thing was trying to tell me was, this is a platform of a life school that we want to endure, but somehow we don't know, but they know. It's as if you can start over again to get it right the next time. That's what this thing was trying to tell me, that you're going to start over again with this. And it's mind-blowing because you'd say, well, how is that possible? The same people, the same family, the same everything, but on a different vibrational level. So people ask me, and from my knowledge of talking to these things through some types of equipment, if the Earth was not here and it was nuked, would the Earth still be here? Would you still be here? You would. And you're going to say that's impossible. What we have learned is that it never existed. You made it exist.
Mm-hmm.
You made it exist because nothing exists. Therefore, everything exists the way you perceive it. And it goes back to the Mandela effect, and it goes back to nothing is real only until you make it real. So nothing is solid. Nothing there is actually there. It's only the intent and vibration that we put off to make it there. And that's what I have learned, and that's what I teach the world, that a lot of people understand that. It's hard to grasp, but it's kind of like your perception of reality is what you make it, because you never did exist in the first place.
I fully agree.
I'm going to add to that, ladies and gentlemen, two things. First one, we know beyond a reasonable doubt that the Vatican has over 53 miles in the vault. We know that if we knew what they had in the vault, it would ruin mankind and history of mankind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the caveat, let's look at the Sphinx in Egypt. Now, we know the Egyptians are very well masterminds, and they are artisans, right? They are very well when they come to their artistic side. And everything they do is very well proportioned. So that statue was 270 feet long, 70 feet tall. Riddle me this. Why is that head not proportionate to that statue?
It's not original.
It's supposed to be a lion.
Yeah.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. See, when Napoleon found that statue, the only thing was visible was the head, because his cannonball blew off the nose.
Wow.
So the Egyptians did not build that statue. The statue was already built.
Yeah, it predates the pyramids. Yeah.
The erosion on it, the water erosion on it,
Mhm.
also
That is
lets
correct.
you know as well that it's much, much older.
It
I
had a
think they
moat
said,
around it and everything.
yeah.
A lot of
Right.
people cannot fathom that. They're like, "You're crazy, Grizzly." I'm like, "No, I'm not." You look at all their statues and everything they built. It's a masterpiece. And you're telling me you look at that statue, it's got a shrunken head, you're smoking crack. There's no way they did that.
Aren't there tunnels underneath the pyramid and Sphinx to what is it, inner Earth?
Well,
I don't know
You
exactly.
look at the Grand Canyon, they got it sealed off. I mean, what did they find down there? I know what they found. Stuff they don't want us to know, that the Egyptians were over here and mankind, it would write history books.
Yep.
So yes. I'm not
Yeah,
a
there's-
conspiracy theorist.
there is tunnels. There is tunnels
Yeah.
underneath in the Great Pyramids and whatnot. I wouldn't necessarily say inner Earth, but then again, what is inner Earth? You know, I would say we're more of a honeycomb Earth, but I believe it was for filling it up with water, as it was part of a generator, and they brought the Nile in there, moving water.
Interesting.
So,
Kathy, what were you going to say?
Edgar Casey has, he had a great reading where the Hall of Records is actually underneath the Sphinx. You access it by the right paw. I've been to Egypt. I've been to the Sphinx. I've been in, my point of contact with my alien experience was in the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I'm all about Egypt. For me, a lot of past lifetimes there. So for me, it was like going home to the motherland. And I've written about this. They're big experiences, so they take a lot of time to talk about right here. But I also had a dear friend, God bless her, she's no longer with us, Dr. Carmen Bolter. I don't know if any of you have heard of her or know of her work. Brilliant woman. She actually was able to go into the tunnel system underneath the Sphinx. So she herself had seen this. And the Nile back in the day came all the way up almost to the paws of the Sphinx. So, and there is an underwater whole system there, and that's so key. So not only do you have the ley lines, you've got the magnetic lines, you've got the aquifers. And, I don't know if any of you have read the Emerald Tablets. That's a mind-blowing whole series of documents that also states and talks about the underground. It even says Thoth is the god of wisdom, wrote the Emerald Tablets. He even has a reference in his writings about he arrived from Atlantis on a Rye, you're nodding your head, so I don't know if you've read the Emerald Tablets. I mean, it's mind-blowing stuff. And that, he arrived via his own personal airship that is supposedly underneath the Sphinx. So, I mean, it sounds very fantastical, but when you read the documents, it's pretty believable. And then you've got Casey out there, who's also chiming in and seeing things. And I had a total out-of-body experience there at the Sphinx. I went back in time. It was like a time slip, and crazy. So, and at the time, that Sphinx, when I had that experience, the Sphinx was painted. Now, when I had that experience, I didn't see above where the dream stealer stone is to see what the head was on the Sphinx. It's like, I wish I could go back in time and go, why didn't you look up? But what I did notice was that the Sphinx was painted. So it was like the color of a lion. It was this golden colors of what a lion's fur is. That's what it was painted. I remember noting that. So next time I go back and I have another experience, I'll have to make a mental point. Look up.
Well, Brian Barber just made a good point because it's documented. They actually did a spectrograph of copper in Egypt, and it came back from a mine in Michigan
Yep.
that was
Yep.
found, an exact match, and they could not figure that out. How did the Egyptians get the copper from Michigan? That was mine. It was ore there. So that threw a wrench in their data, right? And also that they say there's 70% of unfounded pyramids over there that they haven't even found yet. That's covered
Yep.
up by the sand dunes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just fascinating, right?
Yeah. They're doing a lot of the land radar, finding all of these anomalies under the sand. And a lot of it is our other pyramids. Yeah.
I want to say that it's close to like 90% here in Mexico, or at least in Latin America, that it hasn't been discovered, mostly because of the cost. It's just too much money. You look out into the jungle, whenever you see like hills poking out of the jungle, it's not a hill, it's most likely a pyramid.
Yep.
My wife used to work for a company here in a Canadian company that was working in Mexico, and they decided to they were building pipelines, and they knew if they stayed near the river that there was a high probability of finding, artifacts and whatnot. So they decided to build over top of a mountain. So they get on top of the mountain, and what do they find? A smaller version of Machu Picchu. So it was, very, very cool. And I was like, oh, I want to go see this, but I never did get to. But they had to bring in the archaeologist and, make sure everything was good when they're going in and around these areas.
So there's a federal law in the books. I can't remember the law. I can't recite it. Somebody had to, out there in the audience, fact check me. But any type of mound, you cannot excavate, desecrate, or anything. And the reason why they passed this law is everything is tied back to an Indian tribe and sacred because of the giant bones. And they want to cover it up. The Smithsonian and everything lost all those giant bones back in the early 1900s, and a big stink about all that stuff. But they passed it, and I forgot what year it was passed to protect it, because all these farmers were out digging fields in basement foundations and so forth. They were uncovering these bones. They're like, what the hell we do with it? Well, they were taking it into town hall and taking pictures and putting them up in coffins. They're like, look at this, Joe. What you got, Bob? Look at this. 10 foot, 12 foot. And everybody was taking pictures in the local newspaper with it. And what did your mom and grandpa do with it? They put it in their basement. And when they passed away, they didn't know, the grandchildren, they just gave it to the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian gave them a receipt. And after years, the receipt got tore up or whatnot, got whatever. And they just lost track of it. So, but it's interesting that federal law, because I saw that and I was like, wow, that's interesting. So, and that's why they build around them. In fact, when I worked off duty at, it's called Muhammad Ali International Airport here in Louisville, they got an Indian burial mound, and they want to expand the airport. And the local tribe's like, hell no, you ain't going to do it. And Louisville said, screw you, we're building. And they did. They built right around the damn burial mound and put a damn chain link fence around it. Now, you can Google that on Google Maps, and you can see the airport and the burial mound right there, and the airplanes go right up and down, around it. And I'm like, damn, were they smart?
Yeah, that is true.
They didn't touch it. They built, we went out there, and we were standing by the planes looking at it. Like, damn, they cut the grass and everything. Unbelievable. But they did. They built it.
Real quick, what do you guys think about the giants? Who do you think they are, or where did they come from? Some people think it's Anunnaki, or I've heard that before, but I don't know.
I'm more in the camp of Nephilim.
Yes,
we were talking about that last week.
Yeah. And I'm not saying all Nephilim are bad, because if you start to do some research, you have like the men of renown, we'll say Hercules, Samson. They competed, or like they did these amazing tasks, the amazing things. Not all of them were bad. Some of them turned out to be good, but of course, some of them were. And cannibalism was high on the mark of them all. So, but again, that's my opinion. There's someone who can be an expert on this. It's only speculation.
Right.
Well, you got Paul Bunyan. Look at him.
Mhm.
Look at Lugloff Cave. Out in, was it Arizona or Colorado? That they actually found the cave and the remains of those giants, the redhead giants, that Indian tribe that had
Smoked
problems
them.
with them, that
Wow.
smoked them out and killed them.
Yep.
They don't know what happened to the skeletons, but they found all those human remains with all the bone that's were chopped up and the bone marrow was sucked out and removed. But
Mhm.
all the big skeletons were gone. What happened with that? But you can drive all the way up to the cave and look at it. All the smoke and fire that was in the cave. So, I mean, what happened? So, once again, does the government cover it up? Absolutely. Look at Mount St. Helens. There was kill teams that went in and tried to excavate Bigfoot, allegedly, and when it erupted, people saw helicopters with Bigfoot that were deceased being carried away from the scene. Did y'all hear about that?
Mm-mm.
Yes,
Yes.
I did.
And people were like, "Man, look at this, Johnny! Go give me a beer, Hank. I gotta watch this. What is that? Hell if I know. It looks like a big monkey, you know." And people thought they were crazy, and they were like drinking, watching this, you know. And it really did happen. And people came out and they're like, "Yeah, we went in and saved them." Then we had the fire out west, right? And the firemen were going in there, and they're like, "Man, these creatures were half burnt." And the government officials, armies, were coming in there and taking them away. So I don't know.
And here's the thing about giants is people are like, oh no, giants never existed. Well, let's step back in history and we start looking at, giant sloth, giant anaconda, titan boa, the megalodon. We look at these much larger species. So why couldn't there have been some sort of Homo sapien or ape? We'll even say ape if you want to say Bigfoot or something like that. And I'm not saying I'm in buying that camp, but I'm saying that we were in an era where there were much larger creatures, and what, humans all stayed the same size? I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch.
No, gigantism, however you say it. Look at Andre the Giant, right? I mean, it says out of every 3 million people, there's one person that's born with it. So to me, the human revolution, right, is born with that gene. That gene came from somewhere. So every once in a while it hiccups, in my opinion, and slips out. That's where we get it from.
Yeah.
How and where, I don't understand it. But yes, I do. Absolutely.
And
So
there
how
again,
does, go ahead, Chris.
and there again, not all giants are bad. I mean, a lot of it is like how you were brought up or how you were brought into this world. If you're brought in with a loving environment, then you're going to be born with more of a loving spirit or conscience. And so you can be 7 foot tall or even higher. It doesn't mean you're going to be a giant, although people may fear you as that at first, and they may run from you. But there again, if they were to know you better or see you in action, they may find out that, okay, he's one of us, not so bad. Because tall doesn't mean anchor.
Hey, Christopher, let me tell you this. I love you to death. But if you're lying, I'm not going to tell Rye to hold my beer. I'm going to go over and ride you or pet you. Okay, I know what lions do. I'm not going to test the water. So I agree with you. I'm not saying everything's evil or bad. I may squirt you a little bit with holy water to test it out. Make sure you don't scream or holler. But
and what's something like that also is, like, just look at family dynamics. You can have like a bad family dynamic, but the child will rebel and turn out much better because they're like, I don't want to be like that. So there's also that side of the coin as well. Like, and I agree with you, Chris, that being brought up in a loving family is also great, but sometimes being brought up in a horrible family makes you go the other way, and makes you great as well.
Exactly.
I seen the Green Mile. I remember that movie. Gentle Giants, absolutely.
Good movie.
Yeah.
I'm tired, boss. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, and I understand what he's coming from, and I do believe that concept, right? And I tell you, being a law enforcement, it was never the big ones I was worried about. It was always the small ones.
Really?
Yeah, hell yes.
They're crazier.
Because they have something to prove.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Absolutely. So,
I want to do a Mandela Effect show sometime. And I want Philip to come on, definitely. because I know me and him share a passion for Mandela Effect. And we've had some really weird things happen. If you guys want to come on for that too, let me know. But
Would love to.
Yeah,
there's a fantastic movie. Actually, that Mandela Effect movie. It was on Amazon Prime, and do I have a synchronicity with that though? That movie was phenomenal and terrifying, actually. I'll actually go into it quickly. There, you know how I said we were talking about dreams and craziness. Well, I had a dream where the world shut down. It was so real that everything, like, first of all the power within the house went off, and then it sounded like a big, huge, like a shutdown sound, like boom. Everything outside went black, and it was about midday, and everything went black. And this dream was only maybe 30 seconds, a minute long, and I woke up terrified. About a week and a half later, I'm watching the Mandela Effect movie, and pretty much the same thing. It is like a quantum computer kind of thing, and it shuts down the world as well. And it was almost identical. And I almost had a panic attack watching this. I was just like, oh my God, this is exactly what I saw in my dream. And so I questioned, I'm like, well, was I awake for a shutdown? I don't know.
Well, what's real interesting, well, not interesting, what's sad, you used to be able, I can't remember where you used to go, forgive me, but you used to go out there and validate a website, right? And every time they make a correction, you can go back and see all the changes. And now you cannot do that. So they are going back to where you can't validate anybody's changes, whether it's a website, newspaper articles, and whatnot. And because I did I researched something, I think 8 or 9 years ago, on an incident on the Appalachian Trail. And I think before I moved, for some reason, I printed it out and I couldn't find it. And I went back and Googled it, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. That's not how it was phrased. And I found the article, and they changed the verbiage. And I was like, what? And and so I would start talking to people. They're like, they were finding the same things, that the verbiage was changed on different articles. It was so are they rewriting history? Yes, they are.
Have you ever used the Wayback Machine?
I think that's one of them. I think they're altering that.
That's scary. That is scary. I know my co-host Tom, he's been talking about that, how he said that they're erasing the internet to a lot of stuff like that.
Yes. So I think that's one of them that we were talking about. I have to go back and look now. I think that's one of them.
And it's always a little bit at a time, so that you either don't notice, or you think that you're remembering wrong, or it just messes with you. It's weird. It's really odd.
Yeah, it really is.
And
very strange.
And it could be they're doing this because they want us to know things their way and not so much the way it truly is in some cases.
Right. Maybe something else took over, and they're like, all right, well, let's slowly give it to them so they don't freak out.
Right.
I don't know. Thank you guys very much for coming on the show. This is really nice. I really appreciate it.
How does everybody get a hold of everybody and find you?
Well, why don't we start with Kathy up in the corner there, and we'll do
Hollywood Square.
Clockwise. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Or the Brady Bunch. Facebook under Kathy Cogliano. I don't have a website. I got to get my button gear and get that going. Email is adornedbykathy at gmail.com. So it's ADORNEDBY. Kathy at gmail.com. And this was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Christopher.
Yes, I can be found on Facebook at Christopher Harmon, Crappie King, and Other World Photography, my photography page, and moveon.chris at yahoo.com.
Awesome. Right.
I can be found on Facebook, Rye Voss, or, our podcast, the Lost Frequency Podcast, can be found on all streaming sites, and then also on YouTube as well, the Lost Frequency Podcast. And if you have any stories and you want to email us, you want to be a guest on our show, just email me at the Lost Frequency Podcast at gmail.com.
Awesome. Mr. Phillip.
Before I just say where you can find me, I want to say this. Thank you for having me on the show. It's great. And what I've learned tonight from this show, and to the listener out there as well, if the government doesn't tell you that giants once existed and aliens are real, and UFOs that may be seen in the sky are real, and Area 51 was a place of imagination, but yet they identified it in the last couple of years to be true. And if all the chemtrails that are going up in the sky are not real, it's an hallucination that you see and think what it is, then what is the truth? The truth is, in my perception and belief, as I walk this earth, you believe in what you experience, whether you believe in Bigfoot or giants, because the news is not going to tell you the truth. And your government will never come forward and be clean around any country and any nation. You can find me at Philip Siracusa or PSIRACUSA 4 at yahoo.com. You can always email me for further questions. Thank you for having me on.
And from coast to coast and around the world, everybody, good night. We'll catch you on the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye.